Wayne Cilento, it's great to talk to you about the revival of Bob Fosse's Dancing. And I want to start by asking you about something that Bob Fosse told the New York Times in 1986. And
Okay.
he said, somebody will remember you. Maybe somebody will say he was a good showman. He gave us good shows. You could
Yeah.
always count on him for an evening's entertainment.
Yeah.
Now you knew him. Was he truly that modest? And hasn't time proven that he will be remembered as much more than just an evening's entertainment?
He's totally modest and just and as insecure as all of us, and charming and not satisfied and very complicated, but all of the stuff that any person would go through. It's just that he happens to be a genius, and it's never enough.
Now, I know that Nicole Fosse has been trying to get a revival of this show going since 2005, which means that
Right.
it's 17 years in the making. Why is now the best time, and frankly, the first time for a revival of Dancin?
I think it's a good time. I don't know. Yeah, I think maybe it's probably the best time after the pandemic, and I think celebrating him in a different way. And my whole approach was getting him back out there the way he was as a dancer, and what inspired him and what drove him to create what he created. So I did a lot of research and I went back. I mean, I know that Dancin was something that was out of the ordinary in 1978, and he did it in a dance format, which was 3 acts, which was unheard of. And there was no plot and no storyline and no particular reason to do it, but he wanted to explore and express different styles of choreography and music in his work. And I have to hand it to him. It's a rough thing to do.
Well, if anybody could do it, it would be Bob Fosse.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. He was always pushing the envelope, always looking for something new and fresh and innovative, pushing buttons politically, socially, whatever, always on the cusp of, doing the right thing. Just keep on working. Just do it.
Now, the library in New York has been filming Broadway musicals for a long time, but I'm guessing that a film of Dancin from 1978 does not exist.
Does not exist.
So how important is it for you as a dancer, as a director, as a choreographer, for there to start being more permanent records of what artists like Bob Fosse, yourself, and others are doing?
Well, I mean, they are taking care of that a little bit more. So they are filming shows. So there is an archive of choreography on this stage. I mean, there's, archives about books and music and scores and all of that stuff, but never really choreographic work from different choreographers through the years. I don't know if you know the organization American Dance Machine. So a while ago, when Gwen was still kicking her legs, and Graciela and Lee Theodore, who was the original Anybody's in West Side Story, they came up with this idea about reconstructing all of these incredible show-stopping numbers from Broadway. So that's been going on for years. I actually did a lot of performances for Lee, and I studied with her, and she did style and different periods of stuff, which was really very informative for me as a young dancer, just kind of exploring and finding out new works and stuff, and different styles from different choreographers. At one point, it's probably the last thing I did with Lee was we did a project on Jack Cole. So I spent like almost a year and a half, 2 years reconstructing all of Jack Cole's work. Not an easy job. It's
absolutely not.
I can't tell you how complicated it is. And I got really good at it, I have to say, but I'm completely out of whack. My brain doesn't work that way anymore. But at one point it really did work. And the big thing with this show was reconstructing Bob's work. And it wasn't about me as a choreographer or anyone as a choreographer filling in pieces and making the show work. It needed to come from Bob's work. And I was adamant about that. So, like you said, there was no archive of Dancin. There was a couple of things out there, which was kind of complicated. So there was this production in Japan that Gail Benedict, I think, mounted and supposedly got Bob's blessings. I actually saw that. When I was doing Jack in Japan, I actually went to see the show. And that was a long time ago. And then there was this other bootleg tape around. I think there was a very small lived not out of town, what do you call that? National company. Not really, but I don't know what it was. But that was the tape. And that was not a very successful tape. Okay, so you want to know all this, don't you?
Yeah, I do. I'm fascinated by because the thing that I'm also curious about, Wayne, is that, like, I'm a lapsed piano performance major, and I find that my fingers still know, if I look at a score of Beethoven's, somehow it's still in my body, not to play it well, but to play it.
Right.
And I'm wondering, because
Right.
it's been so many years since you did Dancin, if there's still something in your body that remembers
Dancin,
that allows you to go to Dancin. Yeah, so I'm wondering if there's
it's pretty shocking, but yeah,
you do have that muscle memory.
And it's been I lost you a minute.
Yeah, I mean, it's been
Hold on 1 second.
Yeah. Oh, the joys of technology.
Are you back?
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah, I know. I hate it. Yeah, I don't know everything, but I know when. I mean, I was in every number in Dancin, so it's very complicated. So, but there's parts of my body that will just fall right into it. I didn't do Crunchy Granola, so I have no body awareness. I sang it, so I knew what I did up on the ladder on the sides. I did percussion too, so I know what that was. I could help a little bit with that. I don't know the detailed specific steps, but when Christine Colby, who was in the original company, she helped reconstruct all of the dancing material. And then there's another part of the show that I wanted to insert for, viewers of 2022, this 21st century kind of world, so we can update it and lift it up into a place where, if Bob was doing this today, what would he do? So that was going on in my head. So along with that, Corinne McFadden Herrera and Lauren Canyon. Corinne is my associate. Lauren is the assistant dance captain, assistant choreographer. They kind of went and they got into it and did the reconstruction, like looking at film work and looking at pieces of choreography and figuring it out. And it's such a long process. So first you have to identify what we want to reconstruct. And of course, we don't want to reconstruct a whole number because there's no time to do like full numbers that he did in maybe a film or a TV show or a variety show or something. And I wanted to give a whole aspect of how he danced and what he did as a dancer. And it's unbelievable because when I did Big Deal with him, after many years of being a choreographer, and he called me up, I think it was eight years from Dancin, he goes, "I'm doing another show, you want to do it?" And I said, of course. I dropped all of choreography and went right back onto the floor, try to get into shape, and I did Big Deal. But that Beat Me Daddy number is so explosive, and I wanted to know where that came from. And it's so weird because if you go back to the MGM movies and you watch Bob as a dancer, he's flying across the stage. He's just leaping and jumping and kicking and flying. And I went, oh my God, so that's where it all came from. So, I mean, I wanted to get that into the show so the audience got a full scope of who Bob Fosse was. So anyway, yes, a lot of stuff floods back into my body, very frustrated because my body is not taking it on and going, oh, I got this, I'm going to do this takes a minute or 2 minutes or a couple of days to maybe break it down and go, okay, this is 1/8 of a piece of the choreography. It
Did
was
Fosse have a lot of archives or anything that allow you to go back and look at notes he may have left or any part of the creation of this show?
no, no. It's just going into different things that he danced in, like Kiss Me Kate, and all different, like the Little Prince. He did a snake dance, and just a lot of amazing, beautiful pieces of work. And then again, it's not just taking the piece and doing the whole number from a movie, which was all edited, by the way. So that's a whole nother story. So we identified the pieces that I wanted to dig into. The girls went and they pulled up the work and we started picking out like pieces of the choreography or steps from the pieces of choreography that we want to string together to represent the number without doing the whole number. So needless to say, it's a very complicated job to take on, but when it's done correctly, it's completely rewarding, because the essence of him and the essence of his work as a choreographer and as a performer, I hope I managed to capture that and put it on the stage.
Well, it's interesting because I saw an interview that Christine Colby gave to a local paper in Kansas, and she called the real Fosse style as contained energy. And she goes on to liken it to a car that's in neutral, but somebody has their foot on the gas. Do you agree with that description? And what would you add to it as somebody who has danced this material before?
Well, I mean, I had such great experience with him. So I wasn't in shows that were nitpicky and completely refined and a very, specific style where it's a typical Bob Fosse style. So you would think, oh, that's Bob Fosse. And of course, I know the other side of him. So I know when he was doing Dancing, he was experimenting with a whole bunch of different styles, even though there was an essence of the simplicity or the stillness that he incorporated in his movement or his choreography. That's all still there. But I think, like in other pieces, it's gotten like really refined and very specific. So I have never been in a situation where I was manipulated to the sense where everything was so meticulous. So it was always, this is the choreography. You watch Bob Fosse dance, which I did, and I'm very good at observing and picking up styles and going, okay, this is what he's doing. And then I could get it in my body and do it. And then, of course, there's dance captains and assistants that are helping him that will go, oh no, you got to lift your arm a little bit higher. You got to you have to roll your wrist. You have to drop your shoulder. You have to focus over there. I mean, so there is that in the equation, but it also just came from me. It came from my interpretation. So until I got a note that I was doing it wrong, I just kept doing what I was doing. And I was very fortunate. I did almost everything. And I don't know why he liked me so much, but he was so generous to me. And he gave me incredible opportunities as a vocalist, as an actor, as a dancer. I have no complaints. But so my approach with this, and I don't know if Christine was saying the same thing, was I did not want to get very specific about every detail in teaching the material. Maybe eventually I would have to get there, but I wanted to pass it on as much as I could remember of how he passed it on, and keep it pure and simple like that, and see what the dancers brought to the material.
Now, this is a notoriously difficult show, and I don't need to tell you that. You were there, you saw the injuries, the physical therapy, everything that was required to get through it. But the human body is capable of doing so much more 44 years later than it was able to do then. How much does our body's resilience and the things we know it can do play a part into any modifications you made so that this show wasn't as hazardous for dancers?
Well, I didn't water down anything. I mean, the choreography is choreography. I mean, it's really up to the dancers to really take care of themselves and be trained like an athlete. And all of these dancers are. I mean, I don't know, in our days, maybe it wasn't as strict because we thought, oh, we're dancers, we can just do this. I mean, I always studied, I always took classes, I always, I always warmed up, I always stayed in shape because I knew that the job that I was doing was very strenuous and, you know, my body was in jeopardy if I didn't take care of it. So I had my own routine. I can't speak for anyone else, but I was like a racehorse. I just put those things on and I got in the theater and I went, okay, this is it. It's on. I'm going to run for 2 hours. That's it. So I just kept straight ahead. I didn't see who was dropping alongside of me. I just kept going. I mean, it's a horrible thing to say, but it was the only thing that saved me. I just kept, I think I called out twice in my whole thing. And I was mortified that I had the flu or something ridiculous. But I didn't water down the project at all. The choreography is the choreography. And the dancers today are amazing in their training, and they're so rounded in technique and, you know, street dancing and hip hop and, you know, all of that stuff. So I think their capability of picking up stuff is a little bit faster and easier for them. It's just the specific style that makes it slows them down because he's very unique. He had a posture. He was very technical, but yet he wasn't turned out like a ballet dancer. He was turned in. He wore a hat. He wore his head down, which brought to his vocabulary. He was a little bit hunched over, so it rounded off his shoulders. He had a built-in mechanism that kind of like identified his style. And, you know, it depended how far he wanted to explode and how far he wanted to really pull it in. So.
Given that Chicago has been running as long as it has, and I know
Right.
Anne Reiking did as much as she could to bring, you know, Fosse's choreography to life, but has that created sort of has that show in it of itself created a school of Fosse for dancers who aspire to be on Broadway or have been on Broadway or playing around the world for that matter?
Well, I think the fact that it's very successful and Annie did a really great job, but again, her billing was in the style of Bob Fosse. Does that mean that's Bob Fosse? Kind of, but not really. It would like me if I was doing, okay, I did Sweet Charity, and I should have said in the style of Bob Fosse because I could do Bob's work if I wanted to. But me as a choreographer, why would I want to do another person's choreography if I just got off of Wicked and I'm onto my next show? It's like, I don't want to reconstruct his work because then I'm stripping myself of my creativity. Needless to say, let me say, Sweet Charity was maybe the hardest show I ever did in my life because you got all of these iconic, incredible numbers that he did very stylistically. And then I'm in there trying to like reinvent the wheel. How do you do Big Spender without a bar? You know, it's that kind of stuff. So getting back to Annie, I think she created a format and a style within Bob's style, and it came very specific. And I think the derbies and the black clothes and the very exaggerated, beautiful body posture moves and stuff like that became iconic in itself. So I think it misled a lot of people in thinking, oh, this is Bob Fosse. This is what he does. And yes, he does that, but he also does 100 other things. And he's an explosive dancer that wants to fly, and he flies. And that's a complete contradiction to what you see in Chicago. Everything's very still, very isolated, very perfect, and it's beautiful, but that's a different part of him. And it's all him, but it's a different part of it.
And let's be fair, because I am old enough to have seen when seen Chicago. It came to Los Angeles. I was
Right.
lucky enough to get Gwen Verdon, Cheetah Rivera, and Jerry Orbach. So I
Ah,
got to see what the show really looked like.
well,
So,
that's the difference. Yeah.
so if Bob Fosse were to look at Dancin as presented at the Old Globe and going to New York, how much would he recognize and how much would he say, Wayne, what are you doing here?
Actually, it's everything he's ever done. So, I mean, I did all of the work from Dancin. I mean, I had to change the act structure. So I had to do 2 acts because 3 acts, I don't know if people today have the attention span to sit there and do a 3-act show. It was great and it was innovative and it was fun at his time, but I think, you know, we're lucky if we keep them in their seats for 1 hour. So it's an hour and an hour, 2 acts. Pretty much the structure of the first act is almost identical to what the show, well, I lied, sorry. So I did the monologue, we did Crunchy Granola, we went into percussion, we went into Big Noise Blew In, which was not in the position that it was in. Big Noise used to come in after Dancin' Man, and Dancin' Man opened up the second act. So there were complications like that. What is the combination of what could be a good first act, what could be a good second act? So that was my thing. But everything, what I did change again was, just for an example, he was going for a vaudevillian kind of style. So in a vaudevillian style, each one of us came out and we introduced the number that was going to come. And we said a little bit about that number. We introduced it. They did the number, blackout. Another person came out, introduced the next section, did the next section, blackout. Another person came out and did the next section. I thought, I don't know. I think that's going to take too much time. So what I did was I created a monologue to take care of all of the introductions about all the instrumentation of what we were going to use in this particular section called percussion. So I created a monologue with the beautiful little girl. She's wearing a derby, and it's everything that Bob had told us to introduce. And she proceeds to do this incredible little piece. And so we set it up. She leaves, and we do percussion 1, which is 3 girls. And that blends into percussion 3, which is 3 boys. I was one of them, which blends into Calypso, which is the whole company, which I asked him if I could get out of 2 to get into 3. I had a big bruise on my hip. He said, yes, put me in Calypso. So I did that too. And then there was percussion 4, which was a solo for Charles Ward at that time. So I blended all 4 of them together, as opposed to introduction, beginning, and begin. So stuff like that, but everything in between is exactly what he choreographed.
And
So,
if my memory serves, but Mr. Bojangles seems like it's the heart of the show, that's
right.
the emotional center, as it will. Why do
Right.
you think that number resonates the way it does?
It's really complicated for me because I sang it. So, and in my position, I had to sit on the step and look at a purple light and not look at the stage. So I never reflected about what I was looking at. I knew that Chris Chadman was playing Bojangles, and he was playing it as a very old man. And I knew that Ross Miles was his spirit dancer. And Ross Miles is a ballet dancer. So there's this hunched up old man and this beautiful statuesque ballet dancer in the back doing this complete contrast of movement. I don't know how to explain what was in Bob's head, but a lot of variations went through my head to try to figure out what was in his head. I know that there was a voiceover scene about a guy being brought in front of a judge, and the judge was judging him about being a drunken kind of what do you call that? What do you call that? I lost the word. What? I don't know. Anyway, he was putting him in jail because he was like a bum and he was on the streets and he was drunk, and he usually does that all the time, and he dances around. He's happy, but so he goes to jail. So okay, so that's a setup. So I kept on going, I got to make this better. I have to make this better. I have to sort out what's going on. And I thought, okay, it's really deep, but where is Bob coming from? Where is he coming from? He was infatuated with Bojangles. Obviously, he was very interested in Black hoofers, like the Nicholas brothers and the Hines brothers and the duets. And he put me in the tap duet with Johnny Mineo in Sing Sing Sing. And it was the same thing that you would watch in an old movie, and you would see the Nicholas brothers or any two Black brother tap hoofers doing. So he was infatuated with that whole world. Okay, so he must have done research about all that, and he must have looked at the stylistic rhythms and the format of that kind of choreography. It wasn't 42nd Street tap dancing. It was all internal and down into the feet and shuffling along and body moving and, you know, very cool style going on. So I said, okay. So I decided to take a leap, and I went, okay, so what if Bojangles is really like a 75-year-old, 80-year-old man who maybe drinks a lot, loves to dance, hangs out, goes to bars, dances in streets, smokes a lot of cigarettes? Who does that sound like to you?
Bob
Okay,
Fosse.
we don't want to talk about it. Yes. So, okay. So I said, okay, so that's where all this is coming from. And then his spirit, I think because he was so infatuated with ballet technique and being like a classic dancer, I think that's why he used Ross, because he was classic, beautiful posture, stood up erect, complete opposite of Bob, who was hungover a little bit, stylized. And I went, okay, I'm getting the picture. And so I created this. I put Manny Herrera in the cell with Jacob Guzman, who is playing Bojangles, and Manny as prisoner mates, and they have a conversation, and Manny sings about Jacob, and that's and Bojangles is up there frozen in a freeze, and we bleed him away, and the story begins between them about Manny knowing this man named Bojangles, and he danced for me in worn out shoes. So, and it's actually going over really well. I think Bob is happy.
Yes. Well, I'm unhappy that I don't get to make it down to San Diego, but I will see the show in New York.
Okay.
You know, when that happens. It's come to my attention that part of the set build is an homage to all that jazz.
Right.
With the scaffolding and things like that. So I'm wondering, when you auditioned for Dancin, how much was the audition process, if you had to audition, like the way he depicted the audition in the opening minutes of All That Jazz? And then by extension, how much was your audition process for dancers in this show like that audition sequence that he so brilliantly put together for his movie?
Yeah, I think I missed the whole first half of it. So I never got in the room with, you know, the hundreds of people or whatever, like the cattle call kind of a thing. I did audition for him for Chicago, and I did the T for two combination. I got cut, but I went on to do chorus line, so I was okay. But so I missed that. And then I think I got involved. I was doing the act with Liza in LA. It was called Shine It On, and then it became the act, and then we moved in. But I had danced for Graziella and Alan Johnson, and I actually assisted Grazie for a while, and she went to Bob and said, Bob, Wayne didn't come in to audition for you. I really think you need to see him. And he went, okay. So I don't know if you know the Minskoff Theater.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there were rehearsal studios. So on one side of the rehearsal studio, I was rehearsing the act, and on the other side, Bob was doing pre-production for Dancin. So they arranged it that my lunch, I ran across the hall. And so I walked into the room, and Annie was there, Bob was there. Bob's drummer, and Gordon Harrell was at the piano. And it was really relaxed atmosphere. And I did the little T for two thing, perfect. And so that was that. And then he started teaching me pieces of choreography that he's playing with for the show. And Annie danced with me, I danced it, Bob danced with us. I was like, wow, this is maybe a dream. And then I went over to the piano, he asked me to sing. I sang my little Stevie Wonder song. He asked me to raise the key, I said, okay. He asked me to raise the key again. I said, okay. One more time, okay. And I'm singing like a bird. And usually dancers don't sing like birds, believe me, because we're also, we're dancers. We don't open our mouth. And he said to me, thank you for coming. This was great. I have to tell you, the show is cast, and I really don't know what I'm going to do. I said, no problem. Thank you. I appreciate you seeing me. And we shook, and I hugged Annie, and I left. And I was jumping in the hall, like going, oh my God, this is amazing, amazing. Opening night of the act. I'm doing a number with Liza. I'm in the middle of the stage. There's guys around me. Liza's back behind me. And I look out into the audience, and there's Bob Fosse staring right in my face. And I went, holy shit, holy shit. And so I got through the show, went to the opening night party, and I run into Bob, and he says to me, I want you. I said, what? He said, I want you in Dancin. I said, you're kidding. He said, no. Do you want to do it? I said, of course I want to do it. And I said to him, but you can't tell Liza because she'll kill me. I'm the dance captain of the show, so I'll have to double. He said, okay, no problem. And that was it. Then I found out, and I thought I had my own private audition. Then I found out all the people he was serious with, he had private auditions with. And I found that out on the 40th anniversary of Dancin. On the stage, I went, what? You people had a private audition? It was mortifying.
Well, also gratifying, I guess, because you were one of the
absolutely.
people who had a private audition. And let's be honest, the act must have been very fascinating to be on with Scorsese involved and
Right.
and with Liza. But one of those shows ran a lot longer than the other.
Yes. Yes. And I'm really glad I did it. That's for sure.
Well, let me conclude, Wayne, by asking you one last question. If a chorus line gave an identity to the dancers in a Broadway show who heretofore didn't have much of an identity, what did Dancin do?
I think, what Michael did was an idea from dancers that I danced with, like Tony Stevens and Michonne Peacock. And they were at a point where they were disgusted that we as ensemble dancers in the show and do production numbers, we're the thing that is carrying the show forward. It could be a horrible show, but the choreography could be amazing. Okay. So they wanted to do a show about dancers, and they got Michael involved with that to get some dancers in a room. And I think he did an amazing job to have dancers have a voice and a life and, a history and where we were coming from and how we got to Broadway and we were auditioning on the line. I think what Bob did with Dancin was he took that idea, he made 16 of us principal dancers that were going to do an evening of dance. And we did everything. We sang, we read, we danced, we held the whole show together. So he put us up on another level. I would never know that, but when Annie and I got like a Tony nomination for Best Supporting Actors in a Musical, that was completely unheard of. But that's what he did. He made the world recognize that we were as talented, or we are as talented as principals in Broadway shows. We were a principal in a Broadway show. So he really pushed it over the edge for us.
Well, I have to tell you, every time I see dancers like yourself, and I've been watching, shows since 1976, every time I see them, I kind of wish, God, I wonder what would have happened if I had taken some dance classes. But given that I'm about to embark on a crash course in dancing because I'm getting married in 2 weeks, we'll see if I still have two left feet.
No, they'll get it. You'll get it. Just go for it.
We'll see. I've always wanted to learn the whole routine to the opening of a chorus line.
Oh, no way. Are you kidding me?
I've always wanted to know that.
Choreography.
I know, but that's the thing I've always wanted to do.
Well, then you should do it after you get married and you get through with that. Then you should go and try to get that together.
Yes, well, I do know one of the actors who was in the revival, so hopefully I can ask Paul McGill to teach me that at some point.
That would be fun. Could you do me a favor and tape yourself? I'd love to see it.
Wayne, this could be Waiting for Godot.
All right.
Well, thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate it. I really cannot wait to see this because I love Dancin so much. And I've admired your work for so long. So I wish you a great road of success with this revival.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thanks for taking the time.
My pleasure.
I can't wait for you to see it.
I can't either. All right. Have a great rest of your day.
All right. Thank you very much. So
thank you.
Craig.
Bye-bye.
Bye.